everybody, welcome to the show. And on this episode, we have Mr. Gary Anderson, and he plays the drums, comes from a family of racers, and let's just get this show started. So, hey Mr. Gary, how are you?
Great, just very good.
I've got some questions here, let's just hop to them.
Okay.
So, can you tell us a little bit about go-kart racing as a kid?
Okay, sure. I was about 7 years old, and I didn't even know go-karts what they were. I was just, I was busy playing Little League. And my dad said, let's go look at this go-kart. And we went and looked at it, and I thought, hey, that'd be fun to drive. And so he bought it, and we took it home, and we put it in, took it out to a parking lot, and we just started racing around the parking lot. And I thought, well, this is fun. I didn't know where it was going to go. I just thought this is fun. And after a few months of that, my dad said, let's take the go-kart over to your uncle's. He had a fabricating shop. And they cut my go-kart in two. And it broke my heart. I thought I'll never be able to drive that go-kart again. But they fixed it up so it was better for racing. That's why they cut it in two. They lowered it to the ground. And they put a bigger motor in it. And they put aluminum wheels on it. And we took it back out to the parking lot, and it was really fast then. I mean, it was like scary fast. So we drove that for a while, and then my dad said, let's go racing. Let's go try it out. So we went to a racetrack where it was all kids on go-karts. And we started racing go-karts. And I spun out a lot, I crashed a lot, but I learned how to do it. And had a lot of fun with that. And that's how the go-kart started.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And interesting.
Yeah.
My next question is, what was the scariest thing that ever happened during a race?
Wow. Okay. Well, when you race the go-karts, they don't have a clutch. So I would sit in the go-kart, my dad would pick up the rear end of the go-kart and then slam it on the ground, and that would spin the rear wheels, and that would start the motor. So we would all get going, and we were 7 years old. We really didn't know what we were doing, and we'd be inches from each other going around the racetrack. And sometimes we would bump each other's tires. And if you bump a tire, it can flip you. So you could be driving your go-kart, going slow, thinking, okay, I got this under control, this is working, and maybe the guy next to you bumps you and it flips you. You didn't even see it coming that fast. That was kind of scary. It just scraped you up a little bit. If you didn't like to be banged up, it probably wasn't a good sport for you. Me, I thought, hey, this is fun, let's go do this some more.
Yeah.
But my dad used to race cars. He raced sprint cars. So I looked at pictures when I was a kid of what he used to do. And I thought, I want to do that. I want to do that. If this is how I get from this point to that point, this is what I want to do. So we had a lot of fun. So we went all over California, and we raced all the different go-kart tracks, had some fun with it, and it got very, very expensive. And that was finally when we finally said, okay, let's take a break from this. And we stopped racing go-karts for a couple of years.
I see. I kind of get that. You're right. It could spin out if you hit the tires, and I get how you stopped because it started to get expensive. I know some things about money issues, kind of.
Yes.
But then I have another question.
Okay.
About your go-kart racing. What color was your go-kart?
When we refabricated it, we painted it candy apple red. And since it was a family sport that we were doing, my mom did all the fancy upholstery in it. So the go-kart was candy apple red, and the seat, and they had knee pads for your knees. They were white. So it was a really good looking go-kart. And then it had aluminum wheels. So it was real racy. Yeah.
Cool.
And then I had a white helmet, and I had a black leather jacket. And we just wore jeans back then, and that's how we raced.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I really like that color.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Yeah.
We would put the go-kart in the back of my dad's 56 Ford station wagon, and we would take off and go racing. And I would race against other kids my own age. And some of the kids you'd learn to like, and some of the kids you didn't particularly care for, because some of them didn't race very clean. They would deliberately knock you off the track. So you learn who you can race with and who you can't race with. If it's someone that races dirty, then you just got to pass them as fast as you can and get out ahead of them and get away from them.
Cool. What did you love so much about racing? What drove you? No pun intended.
Yeah, the thrill of it. It's something that gets inside of you, and it's the excitement because you don't know what's going to happen. You've practiced, you've done all the things, you got the go-kart working good, you've thought in your head how you're going to pass guys, but you don't know what's going to happen when the race starts. You can try to be as ready as you can, but the excitement of it is you don't know until you start racing. And it was a lot of fun that way.
Cool. That's almost the exact same way I feel about doing interviews.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
you don't know where it's
cool.
going to go, but you start out and see what happens.
Yeah. Do you have any pictures from your races?
Oh, yes. I got a lot of pictures. I got some of them out if you want to see them.
Yeah. Could we?
Yeah. You want to see them now?
Sure.
Now this is when I switched from go-karts to motorcycles. That was the next step. Okay, that's me here. And this is when I'm still an amateur. I'm just racing for points. And this was a track that was out in the desert of Southern California. And they came in and they put clay down on the track, which was a good idea. But what happened was the wind would blow and then the sand would be on top of the clay, and it made it really slippery. So you had to be, it was like riding on ice. You had to be really careful. So it would be something you just had to work with. That bike there is called a Bull Taco. It's 250 cc's. It was built strictly for racing, and it was a fast motorcycle. They blew up a lot, but it was a fast motorcycle.
Cool.
And, I had a lot of fun on that one.
Nice.
This is my first year of racing professional, and I made a mistake, and I actually drove into him, and I hit him once already. And when I did, it brought his rear wheel around, and he fell. And so I'm still trying to race. I'm trying to save it, but I don't want to hit him again, because if I hit him again, it'll do what they call high side, and it throws you over the top of the motorcycle. And that's a rough way to get off of a motorcycle. I'm probably doing about 80, 85 miles an hour right there. That's at the end of a straightaway. This was a half-mile oval, and we would do about 100 down the straightaway, and then drop it down to about 80, 85 in the corners.
Cool.
This is the second picture of this. So you can see where he's sliding, and you can see where I'm sliding. And it was the first time I'd fallen that fast, and I couldn't believe how far I was sliding. I kept thinking, when am I going to stop sliding? And if you look close, you can see he's got his hand over his back, because there's about 10 motorcycles behind us. And you don't want to get hit by another motorcycle once you've fallen. But that was my first pro race, and that was the main event, and I crashed. So that happens.
Yeah.
My motto was, you're not trying hard enough unless you fall once in a while.
Yep.
This was another track. This was a half-mile oval. I traveled all over United States racing them, and some of the tracks I can't tell where they're at, because I can't see enough of them. I can see a crash wall back here, but I'm not sure what track this is. This is me here. This was a friend of mine named Steve Nichols. He rode for K&N Yamaha. He was very, very fast. This is me down here racing. I don't even know who this guy is, but he's trying to come underneath me. He's trying to come in and get underneath me and make me move over. So I'm just keeping the gas on as hard as I can, and I'm not going to let him move me over. Because if he moves me over, he will pass me. This is me after I broke my leg. I'm wearing a catcher's shin guard, and I think that's at a track that was in Lancaster, California, and I don't remember how I did that day. I don't really remember. This is a track at Ascot, California. This is a friend of mine named Charlie Gann, and he was real fast, but I could manage to stay in front of him, but I had to work hard to stay in front of him. This is me back at Adelano. This is another amateur racetrack here. You had to race amateur. You had to be where you could beat all the amateurs. If you can't beat the amateurs, there's no sense trying to do this professionally.
Right.
And I thought I was going to try to be a professional motorcycle racer. So this was when I was still racing sportsmen. This one here, I think this was a TT track. A TT track is where you turn left and you turn right and you go over one big jump. Because if you look at my eyes, you can see I'm looking kind of head and up. So I think I'm lining myself up for the jump. I don't remember who this is. When you get to this point, you're racing against so many people that you can't remember all their names. But okay, this is me here. That's my friend Charlie Gann. This was a guy named Dwayne Keeter, and he got killed the week after this picture was taken, racing motorcycles. Not everybody made it to the next race.
Yeah.
This is me. I think this is in Tulare, California. I'm racing a bike called a Suzuki, but it was highly modified. I raced it for the Suzuki distributor, and it was fast, but I couldn't beat all the Yamahas. The Yamaha was a little bit faster. See, here's where I'm going over one of the jumps I was talking about.
I see.
And it just drops way, it just throws you way out there about 40, 50 feet. You really fly. And you have to land on your rear wheel first so that you can make a gentle landing. This is a right-hand turn. I think this was at Trojan Speedway, a track called Trojan Speedway that was in California. That's that track Adelano where I'm coming off the jump. This is a track in Tulare where I'm racing that Suzuki. This is the TT race. I must have got a bad start or something because I'm going around this guy on the outside, and he was never a competitor, so I'm passing him and trying to get to the front of the pack probably. And you can see the other motorcycles back here. They're waiting for their turn to race also. This is, I'm not sure what track this is, but I'm back on the Suzuki again. And you can tell this is before I broke my leg because I don't have my catcher's shin guard on. And when I broke my leg, that was pretty much the kiss of death for my racing. My leg just wasn't strong enough anymore to do this. I would try to race and it would hurt. It just hurt. I couldn't do it anymore.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. This is me here. You go as fast as you can down through the corners because when you get down the straightaway, you tuck down and you better go as fast as you can because these guys, they'll go right over the top of you, literally. They want to win the race. They want to make the money. This was a race right after I broke my leg, and I thought I was ready to race. But if you look, see the starter, he's already waving the flag. You can see the dirt flying off of this guy's tire because he's giving it the gas. You can see the dirt flying off of this guy's tire. I got just a little bit here, so I don't think I was quite mentally as ready as I thought I was. It's kind of a mental game. Yeah. This is me here, back on the Bull Taco, and I'm getting underneath somebody and passing them.
That's really cool.
But these were $1 a piece back in the day, and they're all black and whites. And the photographer, he went to all the different tracks where all the races were, and we would know on this Friday we had to be at this track. The following Friday we had to be at a track over here. And we had a circuit where we knew where we had to go. It just kind of like the NASCAR guys do, you know, with the cars. And a friend of mine went and bought a brand new van right out of high school, and we loaded up 3 motorcycles and enough parts to build one more, and we would take off and go racing.
Cool.
And I remember times when it was the main event and we're sitting there waiting for it to start, and my friend would say, "Gary, how much money do you have?" I'd say, "Well, I got about $1.50 in my pocket." He'd say, "Well, I got about $4.30. So I knew I had to do good because if we wanted to eat that night. So I was there to win, and I wasn't there for second place. If it was the last lap and I was in second place and I tried everything I could to pass that guy, I'll take second. But I really wasn't there for second place. I wanted to win at all costs. And that's the way everybody else was doing it too. And that was kind of the difference between the amateur riders and the pro riders. The amateur riders, they'd say, "I'll take second and come back next week." The pro rider says, "I don't care about next week. I want to win today."
Cool.
Yeah.
I really like those pictures.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's really cool. And I just want to ask you something about drumming.
Yes.
How did you get into drumming?
Okay, the drumming, that was always just a fun thing. My grandfather played drums in the Marine Corps in World War I. And so there was always that interest of the snare drum, just playing it. And there was a TV show called The Lawrence Welk Show. And my mom would always watch it, and it was a band that was on television. And he would, the drummer was always grinning and smiling and playing, and my mom would always say, "Look at that, why don't you do that? Why don't you do that?" And I thought, well, that'd be fun. And since my grandfather played the drums, it wasn't too hard to convince my parents to get me a snare drum. And that's what started. I got just the snare drum, and then I took lessons, and but it was always a second thing. The motorcycle racing was always the first thing. But the drums were always fun. It was more enjoyment for me, and I had a good time doing it.
Cool. Are there any other instruments you play besides the drums?
I try to play the bass guitar, but I'm not very good at it. I took lessons for a year, and I wasn't real happy with my progress, so I'm taking a break right now. Maybe I'm a drummer, not a guitar player.
Maybe. I'm just wondering, would you like to give us a little drumming demo?
Oh, sure. Be proud to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, these are Pearl Master Series drums. My parrot doesn't like my drumming, so he starts squawking, but he has to live with it. A song that came out in the 60s that was, it measured everybody's drumming skills, and it was called Wipeout. And it was a band by named Safaris, and it was an instrumental. There was no singing. And it kind of went like this. the 60s when I was playing, that's how they judged if you were a good drummer or not. If I went to an audition to be a drummer in a band, they always asked me, can you play Wipeout? You know?
Great! That's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had this drum set for about 6 years, 7 years now. It's probably the best drum set I've ever had. I'm playing with Zelgin cymbals, and they're, to me, those are the best cymbals you can make. And I really like this drum set. I've played probably in front of maybe 300 or 400 people, you know, with this set with different bands, and had a lot of fun. It records real well. I've done some recording work with it, with them, and I like to do that. I used to do a lot of work out of recording studios, and the recording studio would call me up and say, hey Gary, can you come Wednesday night, and we got somebody here that wants to record some music. So they wouldn't even tell me what kind of music it was going to be. You know, I kind of walked into it cold. You know, I didn't know if it was going to be country or jazz or rock. And so I would just go in there and sit down and listen to what they had. And then I'd figure out some kind of a beat, and I would tell the people, well, do you like this beat? And I would do a certain beat, and then I'd say, well, how about this beat? I'd do a different beat, and they'd say, we like the first one better. I'd say, all right. So I would do that. I made 2 CDs that they sold to Walt Disney that they were going to use for children's movies. I don't know if they ever did use anything that I recorded or not. I've done a lot of recordings for different artists that go up and down the East Coast, and when they're playing at a certain venue, they want to sell CDs. So I was the drummer that was on the CD. They never said my name. They paid me for it, but they never said, you know, Gary's on the drums. They just talked about who the star was. The drummers aren't usually the star. The drummer's usually the guy in the background. Mm-hmm. But I like to play where if I see the people are dancing and moving, I feel like I'm doing my job. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what the drummer does. You know, you got the guy that can do the lead guitar, and you got the guy that can scream in the mic and sing, but the drummer, that's the guy that gets the people to go where they like it.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do.
Cool.
It's a 13-inch, this is called a rack tom, because it goes on a rack, this rack here, so this part here goes, they call it a rack tom. It's 13-inch. This is called a floor tom, it just sits right on the floor. This is a 14-inch. This is a 16-inch. I have a 22-inch bass drum. I like that deep sound. Yeah. Most guys play with a 20-inch bass drum. This is 4 inches bigger, but I like that. Dum, 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 dum. Yeah. I want it to vibrate your ribs. I think that's pretty close. Yeah. And this is my snare drum. It's a 14 by, I think, 6 inches deep. This is called the hi-hat. You work with your left foot. This is called a crash cymbal. This is called a splash cymbal. It's really an effects cymbal. There's a whole bunch of different types of effects cymbals, but I like the splash. And it kind of goes, and it goes short. There's not a whole lot to that. I don't usually hit that one when the singer's singing, because that kind of squishes on him. But if the guitar player's going wailing away, I'll hit that. This is another crash cymbal. They're all different sizes. Hear the difference? Did you hear the difference? So if you hit them together, and sometimes I do that. And then the good old cowbell. Yeah. And that's my drum set. I use different heads for different sounds. I tune them differently for different types of music that I'm playing, and I have fun doing them. And it's what I do now.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that is all the questions I have.
Okay.
So thank you so much for being on the show.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And thank you for watching. And if you want to be interviewed, post your name and why you should be interviewed in the comments below. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.